What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dev Marketer channel. I'm your host, J.A. Curtis, but you guys just call me Alex. Now, today's video, we're going to be continuing our work on the CMS, the long, drawn-out process of building this CMS. And truth be told, this is actually a project that I've been procrastinating just because I have so much other stuff on my plate right now that I am really excited to tell you guys about here in a week or so. I'll tell you guys what I've been working on because it's really cool. And you guys it'll make complete sense why I've been so slow on getting videos up once you see it all in action, which will be in a week or two. Okay, but let's get back into working on the CMS. This is something I really do want to get going because I am really excited about further developing the Dev Marketer channel and the Dev Marketer space. And part of that is having a really good place to post the tutorials and the videos and stuff online other than YouTube. So you guys know there's a lot of shit going down with YouTube right now. And part of that is going to be making sure that I have the content available on devmarketer.io, my website, and having it there. But plus, not only that, we can actually enhance the experience of the videos over there. We can have things like forums and so many other great things over there that aren't necessarily available on YouTube. Now, I do plan on continuing to use YouTube, so none of that's changing, don't worry. But I'm really excited to build out this website. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this. What we're going to be doing in today's video is starting the process of wireframing. Okay, so we actually want to build the wireframes for our website, and this is going to be something that it takes a long time to do. So what I'm going to be doing is explaining a little bit on what I'm looking for, and then we'll do time lapses to basically show you guys what I'm doing, I guess, over time, because some of it, it would take too long, and I think you guys would fast forward anyway, because a lot of it, there's not much to say, right? After I start wireframing, it's a lot of just moving things on paper or moving things on the screen and seeing how they look and basically just making judgment calls there and then kind of building it that way. So I'm going to fast forward through some of these portions just so you guys don't have to watch all of it and you guys can just see it in action, and then you can leave any comments or questions you have below. Okay, so the first thing to think about whenever you're working on a wireframe is obviously how you're going to do it. So you can use Photoshop, you can use Illustrator, and then you can always use these new programs like Sketch or Adobe Experience Design. Okay, so you can use any of these programs, any of them will work. I also do tend to, and this is a little bit of a sneak peek into what I'm working on, but these are pretty ugly. You'll see here, I'm going to give you guys a brief preview. I actually tend to also do wireframes that are kind of, I just write them on paper, right? There you go. And I've got lots of these. I mean, I've got a whole stack of papers here. And I tend to just draw them on paper a lot of times before I take them to an actual like Adobe Experience Design or something like that. So don't feel like you have to go crazy whenever you're doing your own wireframes. You can see I've actually got a stack. These are all the current wireframes I'm working on. You can kind of see it. The lighting, the camera has to adjust for the lighting, but anyway, these are just full of current wireframes, okay? And so you can see that you can always use pen and paper if you want as well. You don't need to go out and buy a fancy program, okay? So just want to let you guys know that. So I'm going to be using Adobe Experience Design for these videos that we do today. But I just want you guys to know that you don't necessarily have to do that. So I do have Adobe Experience Design here. This is currently free and it's now available on Windows. So for those of you guys watching this video, assuming this video, you're watching it somewhat around the time that it comes out, it's currently in beta, so it's currently free. You can go over to Adobe and download it. I'll put the link down in the description so you guys can find it. But it's available now on Windows, I believe, and Macs. You can get it now on both platforms. Sorry, Linux users, it's just not available there yet. Like many of these programs aren't unfortunately available. Another option is you can use Sketch. So you can see we've got Sketch here as well, and Sketch is another option. So if you have Sketch purchased, you can go ahead and use Sketch. Sketch is a Mac only application, but I'm going to be using Adobe Experience Design, and these will basically carry over. Sketch and Adobe Experience Design are going to be very similar. Okay, so let's go ahead and boot this up. Let's get Adobe Experience Design in here, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's an update, which there is. I'm going to go and download this update. You guys don't need to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and handle this. turns out I actually have a lot of stuff to update. I haven't used Adobe Experience Design in quite some time, and I actually think I'm installing an update for all of Creative Cloud, although I'm not 100% certain. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while. Man, it's been busy. It's been some busy time. While we let this update, hey, I want to let you guys know, look at this camera. Does this feel better? I actually got a brand new camera. So we're now looking through a brand new camera. This is actual full 1080p. My last one was 720p. This one actually should be better in almost every way. The one thing I have noticed is that this one actually has like a real focus. It's got like a real lens. I mean, I'm sure the other one is a real lens too because it was capturing video, but this actually has like a glass lens that like focuses. So I was having some problems earlier. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on it. Yeah, there. See how it like has to focus? You actually see that it actually has real focus. So I'm kind of blurry now, as you can see my sexy hand. Look at that hand, that palm, those fingers. Oh, and then it zooms in. So, anyway, just want to let you guys know I'm upgrading this. I'm upgrading everything, and I've got some big updates to my office. I'm really, really excited about that we'll be doing in some future videos. So keep an eye on that. Okay, we are updated. Let's get started on this. Okay, so that was quite the little tangent, but let's move on. So what we're going to be focusing on today is we are going to primarily focus on the home page. And then what I'm going to do is I will probably do the following video or pages in subsequent videos. And for those of you guys that want to see that process, it's mostly going to be time lapse, and you guys can watch those other videos. I'll probably do most of the talking that's related to the wireframing in this video, and then the subsequent videos we'll just go over those wireframes with probably just some music and not as much of me talking, other than some basic intros and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to do most of the kind of tutorial stuff in this video, and we're just going to focus on the home page, and then the future videos will be the other pages. So this is what you see when you open up Adobe Experience Design, Adobe XD. This is what you see. So again, this isn't a full tutorial of Adobe XD, although that might be something that might be cool to do. But when you're introduced with this here, since we're going to be focusing on the web, what we can just do is a web 920. This is a 1080p version of a web page, and this is just going to create a little project focused around this file size. Okay, so you can see here it says web 1920, and these are artboards. So I don't know if you guys have experience working with artboards. Artboards are a concept that actually span across multiple Adobe applications, and this is part of the reason I like using Adobe XD, is because I'm already familiar with Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign and all these other programs, Adobe Premiere and Audition. All these programs I'm already familiar with, and so there's a lot of similarities as you move from one Adobe application to the other. The other nice thing is that you can pull in Adobe programs. They all work with each other, so like you can pull in a Photoshop file into your Illustrator, vice versa, throw one of those into an InDesign. You can actually pull a layered Photoshop into Premiere and get those layers, into After Effects and get those layers and then manipulate them, all sorts of cool stuff like that. And that's why I really like using Adobe, is because it kind of spans multiple areas. And so I'm kind of like prone, even though I already own a copy of Sketch because I've used Sketch before, I'm a pretty big fan of this Adobe XD. Okay. By the way, this camera looks so good. I have like a studio monitor here so I can see what it is, and dude, this camera's on point. It looks good. I'm super happy with this, and I might not even do any color correction. We're gonna see. The other videos have color correction. This may not need color correction. This thing looks good, and I look crisp. I'm pretty happy with this camera. Okay, so we're not get distracted on that. So what I was saying is that everything, like many Adobe applications, everything focuses around this concept of artboards. So you can see we have one artboard here called Web 1920, okay? What this basically is just the default name. So what we can do here is we can actually, you can see that this name up here correlates with this big web, this thing right here. So let's go ahead and rename it. We're gonna rename it Homepage. And we can rename it Homepage 1080, or you could do maybe Homepage Desktop. And then what we'll do is we can create another version if we want for like Homepage Mobile. Okay, so let's go now, and what we can do is we can create a container like this that is 1344. So I just kind of drew it, but really what you want to do is 1344 width, as you can see over here. Oops. As you can see over here, 1344 width. We'll just keep extending it as needed. And then let's go ahead and just center this on screen. There we go. So you can click these little alignment elements. You can align it to the left, align it center, align it right, do whatever you feel is needed, okay? So there we go. Now we've got this container here in the center. So for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and just leave the border on. Normally you don't want this border. You can uncheck the border, and now we have the element, but there's no border. For right now, I'm just gonna keep the border checked because I just want to see where that container is, and just for the design purposes. So now let's do the navigation. So how do we want the navigation to look? So we're going to go through, we're going to create this box. I do want navigation to be full width because I want this to be a full width website. And let's just zoom out just a little bit probably. So we're going to just zoom out just a little bit. Like that. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got our element here. And you can see here the height is 110 pixels. For navigation, that's about right, just about right, I would say. So we can probably stick with there. I've noticed if you put a logo, when you put your logo up, the logo tends to look best at at least 60. Anything below 60 and the logo is too small. 60 pixels high. So you want to go above 60 pixels high, but anything above about 100 and it starts to look like overpowering and big. Okay, so I really like 80 pixel high logos is probably about right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create an element, and I'm just going to go ahead and draw it on screen, and then we're going to actually adjust it. So we're going to say it's about 300 pixels wide by 80 pixels tall, just to create that box, okay? So now we've got this box, and I'm going to align it to the left of our container, okay? So here we've got our container, here I've got my logo, and we're just gonna go ahead and fill this logo in, just do something kind of light, like that, okay? So this is gonna be our logo. Now, as we move throughout this, you can actually see that we have kind of our artboards listed here, like homepage, desktop, but if I actually double click it, you can see that this actually gives us like the layer panel for that homepage desktop. Now you can also get this, you see as I click out into this space here, it goes back to all the artboards, which right now we have one. And if you just kind of click in this space, you click on the artboard or you start navigating these elements, it automatically opens back up into this layers panel. So just for the sake of everything, we're gonna go through and actually keep these labeled just so that we know. And so I'm just gonna call this the header, header nav, and then we're gonna call this our container. Okay, and then of course we can obviously layer these. So we can pull our container up on top. Now see how this line is now visible because the navigation is actually underneath the container. Now if we pull the container to the bottom, now the navigation is above the container. So when we click all this out, notice you don't see that line because this item is layered on top of the navigation, okay, like that. So now we've got our logo here and we've got this 300 pixels wide. So now the benefit here is we can now design around this website. We create an element that's 300 by 80. That's gonna be for our logo. And then we can continue to work around it. So let's go ahead and add some text. So I was thinking just right here, we just add our text. And I really wanted a few elements. I wanted to have, what was it going to be? I think I wrote it in. So I just checked our notes. It was learn, share, discuss. So let's go ahead and just do that real quick. So I'm actually going to, let's go ahead and just style these before we duplicate them. So once again, over here, you can see the text. I'm not too focused on the exact fonts. We can worry about the precise fonts later. So right now you just want kind of like filler fonts, you're just trying to get on the page. Don't get too focused on which fonts you're going to choose. We can worry about that down the road. So we've got just a normal font here. You can see that we're 20 pixels is the height of it. Let's go ahead and just do a little bit higher, something like maybe 28. That might be too big. That might be okay. I think that might be okay. So we'll just do learn. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just duplicate this item. And we're going to do learn, discuss, and then share. Like that. Okay, I just wanted to really clean up our menu like that. So learn, discuss, and share. And let's actually probably pull these together. As I move these, you can actually see, okay, so it snaps to try to keep the margins the same. But you can actually see this pink element here is the margins between everything, okay? And this all happens automatically. The blue lines are just smart guides to keep everything lined up. So what we'll do here is probably like 40. Let's see how 40 looks. There you go. I think that looks good. Learn, share, discuss. And these might be too big. Let's just pull that down to 26. And we might need to reposition these. Nope, 40 was good. 40, 40, like that. Perfect. Okay, let's go pull the border off of this. There you go. There we go. So now we got our navigation. And then over here, we're going to want like your profile and stuff like that. So after more thinking about it, I actually think we want to make this a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the height. I'm going to bring the height for the entire navigation to 80. We're going to bring the height for the logo to 50. Like that, perfect. And then we're gonna pull all these up, and I actually think I'm gonna stick kind of in like the 20 pixel range. So let's do 20. I think this is gonna be good. It can be really deceiving when you work on large monitors. It can be kind of deceiving as to what looks good, but especially with something like this, where you start to get tunnel vision, right? Remember, I'm zoomed out. So what looks good to me, I'm looking zoomed out, right? So now what I can do is, let's go ahead and take a look at this at 100%. Is that doable? Here's, let's go up here to 100%. So obviously I've got to like move around, but this is 100%. So if you think about this as your website, that actually looks pretty good as far as sizing. So I think I was overestimating on sizes before. Okay, so we're gonna go 50 pixel high. We probably don't need 300. Let's go ahead and do, let's see, if you do 200, now you're at a ratio of 1 to 4, okay? So you can be 4 times wider than you are tall. And for a logo, that 1 to 4 ratio is pretty good for most logos, unless they have some crazy long name. A 1 to 4 ratio is pretty good. So if it's gonna be 50 high, we want 200 wide. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Oops, I screwed up there somehow. So let's go to 200. There we go. That's our logo. Learn, share, discuss. Dude, that looks awesome. And let's pull it over there. We want a little more space. So let's do 40 pixels from the edge, and then we'll do learn, share, discuss. These are gonna be not 40. Let's do 30, 15 on each side. There you go. That's pretty good. So there we go. That's our basic navigation. Over here now, we're gonna want something like your login. You're gonna have a login for this website that you can upvote things, you can comment on the forums, do different things like that, right? So we're gonna want something just to welcome our fans. Okay, so let's go and make a box here. So this will be for me, I'm gonna have my name, but then for yours, you'll have your own name, right? So we'll do Alex Curtis here. We'll just center it, but we do need a down arrow, right? So let's go ahead and, so what I'm actually gonna do here is I'm gonna do a little bit of font awesome, just a tiny bit. So let's come over here to font awesome cheat sheet. If you guys Google this real quick, you can go down to font awesome cheat sheet. And as long as you have Font Awesome installed as a font on your computer, what you can do is you can find the item you want. So like this is the caret, which is what I'm looking for, but let's do caret down. So FA caret down, just copy this. I'm gonna do, well, we can just do it this way too. Copy, that's actually copying the like Unicode character. And then we come over here into this, did I have this anywhere? No, I didn't, okay. So then let's come here, let's paste. You get the little question mark, and then now let's change this to Font Awesome as the font. And now you should get it. Now, of course, to get this working, you've got to install the font on your system. In order to do that, just go to fontawesome.com and install it. Just download it, install it. Not a big deal. Okay, so let's just pull this over. You don't really need a lot of margins. And then that, we're gonna say Alex Curtis down. Then this is gonna open up to be like your, all your stuff. So your forum posts, your notifications, your messages, everything like that. We might even have a little badge. Let's go ahead and make a little circle. Like that. Let's go ahead and fill it in with normally, of course, you would do something like a reddish color, but I don't like getting too focused on colors here. So we're just gonna do a dark color. I like to keep everything kind of grayscale. And then what we're gonna do here is we're actually gonna double click on this element. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to zoom in here. And let's go ahead and get rid of the path. You can see there's a border there. We don't need the border. Let's just uncheck the border right here. And then we're going to use T to open up the item. And we're just going to say you have like three unread notifications. Okay. Now let's go ahead and change the fill to white. And let's go ahead and move this over here. That's a tap. That's way too big. It's 20. Let's do this like 12. And then just pop it in here like that. Okay, good enough. Okay, so it's going to look something like that. That's where you got your unread notifications, kind of like that. All right. Let's just make this a bit. So now the next thing I want to do is group all these elements together, right? So let's go ahead. I want these to be grouped together. So I'm just going to do, in my case, it's Command G. On Windows, it'll be Control G, I'm assuming. And so that puts all these together. So now when I click this, you see it now says Group 1. So we're going to now call this Badge, or like unread messages badge, like that, something like that. Okay, and then what we can do is let's grab this, and then this, and then this. And I'm shift clicking all of these. And let's grab the box. And then we're going to group all of these together. Oh, before we do that, let's just name these elements, okay? So this is our down caret. And then this is the customer name. And then this rectangle here, this is the full rectangle. We're just going to call it the my account box. All right, and then we're going to grab all of these, and you can see how you can do it multiple ways. So whenever you select an item, you select like the down caret, you can see how it automatically selects it over here. Select the caret customer's name. So I can obviously use the layer panel, or I can obviously just select an item. So I can grab this by the group, I can grab these and it selects it over here, or I can do them over here. So what's cool is I can just grab all 4 of these, it automatically selects all these so I don't have to shift click. And then I can group these. So I'm going to group these together, call it my account, like that. Let's go ahead and zoom out now. And what we're going to do now is let's grab this menu. Okay, we can just grab everything other than the container. So it's a lot easier in the layer panel. So let's grab all those. We're going to group those. So I'm just doing G. I'm guessing if you do object group, that's going to be the long way of finding it. But you got to learn these keys, right? So shift Command G to ungroup it, Command G to group it, Shift Command G to ungroup it. Okay, so just get used to doing all these. So this is going to group everything together, and now we're going to call this navigation. So now if we open up navigation, you can see we've got our My Account section, which is all these elements here. We've got these, which we could group if we wanted. I love grouping stuff together. I'm an organized person, and I love organizing it. So you could actually call this the navigation, the text navigation or something. Then you've got your logo, and then you've got we'll just call this the header, right? And that's all inside your navigation group, okay? So we've got our container, we've got our navigation, and we're good to go. Okay, so that kind of gives you the basics on how all of this is going to work inside of Adobe XD. So from here on out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be speeding up a lot of this, just start laying it out, and I'll cut and start talking to you guys if there's something noteworthy to talk about, okay? So we're going to go ahead and start speeding this up and actually start laying out some elements. Okay, so now the first thing I want to do on the home page here is I actually want to display the popular posts, or like the sticky posts or something like that. The featured post, I guess you would call them. So kind of like what I have right now, I was thinking about doing, basically highlighting the most popular posts, just like with the thumbnails on the front, kind of like you see on a lot of blogs and websites and stuff like that. And then as we get lower, I'll start using more like compact formats like lists or smaller thumbnails and stuff like that. And then also on the homepage, I want to highlight some of the top discussion forums that are going on right now, and then also some of the most shared items as well. Okay, so we're going to kind of hit all the gaps here because this is the homepage, right? That's what you're kind of supposed to do. I think it was Polygon. Let's take a look. So you can see the recode. I was just looking at some other blogs here. Recode's pretty nice. I think it's Polygon. Do they have that? Yeah, they kind of have this layout. The different color overlays. This gets a little clunky, but it's overall kind of cool. So they kind of have these elements over the top of them. Yeah, so I basically want to do that. The main focus here is I want to put our title. And then we want to put our tag, basically. So All right, so that basically sums up the first wireframe that I want to do. Now, depending on how much work you want to put into these, you can obviously go deeper and deeper with the wireframes. A lot of that's going to depend on the project that you're working on. Some of this stuff I'm going to kind of tweak as I go because, again, it's a little different because I'm designing it for myself. So I don't need to get everything as explicit before I start, because I'm kind of working for myself and I can make some assumptions as I go. Now, if you're working with a bigger client, you do need to make sure you get as much detail in here as possible. And I'm hoping that seeing this wireframe in action will help you kind of see how it works, okay? So when you're done, you end up with kind of a general layout like this, okay? So notice that we're not focusing on, the important thing to take away from this is that we're not focusing on the fonts in particular. I basically just used the default font that comes with Adobe XD on Mac at least, which is Helvetica New. Now that's probably a different font on Windows and it's not important. Basically I just use the default font. There's a lot of different variants like light, ultra light, thin, bold, and so forth with this default font. So that's why I like to just stick with it for the wireframes. Now, I'm probably not going to be using Helvetica New because I don't have a license for Helvetica New to use for as a web font, okay? Like that, it's an expensive font, requires an expensive license. I'm not going to use it. It's a good font, but I can find better fonts out there that are free or that I can get a license for with something like Typekit, okay? So I don't know exactly what I'm doing with fonts, but that's not important. So these are the things you can just kind of ignore for now, and you can kind of focus on as you later on in the process. Or you may also, while doing these wireframes, come up with a style guide which will cover some of those elements in it, and then you'll just follow that style guide as you actually start coding and developing the application, okay? So that style guide would basically outline that header ones will look like this. They're going to have the thin font and this font style and, you know, this size and color and so forth. And then font two, you'll have heading 2 is this, paragraphs of this, and so forth. You're going to outline all that, and then your developers will just take this this wireframe, they'll see it's a heading 1, they'll follow the style guide and do it that way. This is strictly for generic layouts. So just to kind of go over it with you guys, to show you what I've done here, because I was speeding through it and didn't really talk very much. You can see here that we've got the navigation. So we already talked about the navigation, what that's going to entail. Up here we've got all of our sticky articles. These are basically the articles that we're going to kind of feature at any given time on the Dev Marketer's website. Then we've got the recent, and this is going to show, I don't know, right now I've got 3 articles of the most recent articles and how they do. We've got the tags here shown. This is an image, not getting too focused on what the image is in particular, but just that this is just a generic image that's obviously going to come from the thumbnail. I also wanted to implement some sort of search by skill. So if you just wanted to find all the articles or tutorials that are related to a skill, you would basically just click the skill here. And this just kind of gives you a demonstration of how that would look when implemented. They're just basic boxes. I've got the skill written up top and then how many articles are down below. Okay, so that's the whole point of this, is to show, the whole point of this wireframe is not to get into particulars about it, but to just kind of demonstrate so that someone can understand it. Now when I say, oh, the search by skill section, people can look at the wireframe and see, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. The search by skill section, it's going to be a box with maybe a background image or a background color. It's going to have the name of the skill, and then we want to count the number of articles, and then that's going to link to a page with all of the articles, probably in reverse chronological order, so the most recent at the top, and it's going to list all the articles that exist. Okay, so that's the purpose of these wireframes. Down below, we've got discuss in the forums, just kind of breaks it out. We have the trending articles in the forums, the most recent over here, and just kind of shows how we would implement that, okay? So this gives the developers now a general idea of how to go, and this kind of answers a lot of the weird detailed questions, this in conjunction with the style guide at least, but then this also gives your client an idea for what their website's going to look like. So this allows them to then come back with any sort of feedback if they felt like there should have been more articles stuffed above the fold, which is kind of cool because you can see the fold right here. Kind of, yeah, like you can kind of see the, anyway, more or less it's the rough fold. We got to do another video about what the fold really means anymore, but anyway, that's roughly the fold here. They can actually see it with the font sizes and stuff that we'll probably be using. I tried to keep an eye out for which font sizes would make sense when we actually go develop the website and so forth, and then kind of see it, and they can tweak it, and they can say, hey, this is maybe too minimal of a navigation. Let's add some more elements to it. These are the kinds of discussions that the wireframes pull out. Do we only want to highlight 5 sticky articles? Do we only want 2? Do we want more? And so forth. If we wanted more, we can then ask him, how do we plan to implement that? Do we want to add more of these smaller items? Do we want to add more of the bigger sticky items? And just kind of brings that up. Things like the search by skill, maybe that's not important to the client. He's like, wait, I'd rather just put more articles here, and so forth. So these are the types of questions you can have that really puts onto paper the layout and idea here. And while the design is still yet to be maybe specified or ironed out, this gives you a really good idea on how everything's going to be laid out, where it's going to be, and at least how the content is going to be, and allows you to answer and discuss questions without getting too focused on the specific design elements, but it still does focus on the important elements of layout. So while everyone might have their exact imagination on how this is going to look with all the little details, when we actually get to the final end, it's going to look very, very similar to this with a little more color and different things like that, but it's basically going to look just like this. So this gives you a lot of feedback. Now, the one thing that is missing from here, I'm going to just kind of brainstorm a little bit more what I want on the homepage. These are the essentials that I know I want, and I might want to add some additional stuff, and so there might be more coming in the future. I really just couldn't think of what else to put on the homepage after I got through the forums. I do want to implement where you can share articles and links that you guys post. I do want to highlight that here as well. That's going to go down below. That's going to need a little more brainstorming before I'm ready to do that, because I haven't completely fleshed out that idea yet. And then the other element that is missing is the footer. Generally with the footer, I keep the footer the same across all the websites. So I don't always copy the footer on my wireframe. So generally the homepage, which is this one, I would show the footer, and then every subsequent page I usually omit the footer and don't worry about the footer, and I just tell the client that it's going to look the same as the homepage. So generally I would have a footer here. The problem is, once again, I'm not 100% sure what I want to put in the footer. Right now I think the footer would be pretty basic, but as the site grows I might put a lot more into the footer. So for right now, the footer is going to basically just have a copyright information and maybe a link to my other website that says, where we're going, and then maybe like terms of service and privacy policy, since I will have a login form, and that, or links to those, and then that's going to be basically it. It's going to be your generic footer for right now. I'm not getting too crazy with the footer. So we may revisit something like the footer down the road, but just wanted to note that normally when I'm creating a wireframe on this page, the home page, I would go ahead and just design out the footer, but on subsequent pages, if I do an inner page here, like what a specific article will look like, when we get to that page, I wouldn't normally put the footer in there, and I would just tell them it's going to be the same as the home page, because generally the way you design the website, you're usually pulling from some sort of master template anyway, whether you're using Laravel or Ruby on Rails or Node.js or anything, you're generally pulling from some sort of partial or whatever anyway, or a template file, so you usually have the same like header and footer more or less across the entire website. Of course, you can get creative and add different elements to different pages if you want, and that might happen here, but for the most part, it usually carries over and it's the same. So I hope that was something interesting to you guys to kind of see that. I know I sped it up, but I don't think there was really a lot to talk about in the middle there. So what we're going to be doing in the next couple episodes is I'm going to start hashing out the inner pages of this website. So we've got the home page here. We're going to go through, we're going to do an article page, maybe what I would call an archive page. An archive page is basically like, if we did like recent articles down here, where you click like see more recent articles, it would show all the recent articles. If you click skill, it's going to show those skills, and so forth. We're going to need to do a forum page, both the main forum page and then also showing an individual forum post. So that's another thing we've got. We've also got login forms, profile pages, and stuff like that. So we're going to be hashing those out in future videos. I'm probably not going to have a lot to say, and I'm probably just going to follow suit with what we did here, where we just did the high speed, fast forward type thing. So that's probably what we're going to do going forward. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. We are going to be continuing on. My goal is to have a lot of videos next week as we go through all these wireframes, and then we're going to start coding the website. So from here on out, my goal is to post 5 videos a week, okay? And this is a challenge I've gotten from basically another YouTuber, and he really thinks the channel would do good if we tried to do 5 videos a week. And not every video is going to be an advanced tutorial. Some are going to be kind of discussion videos or other types of videos. You guys will kind of see those as I get them ironed out, but and then some of them will be tutorial videos. So expect the kind of detailed tutorials maybe once a week, and then we'll have some other videos I think you guys will find interesting scattered throughout the week as well. So we're basically gonna have videos Monday through Friday, and I really hope you guys like the new schedule that you guys see coming out. Yeah, so that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks so much for staying tuned and watching this far. You guys are my heroes. I love you very much. Thank you very much for being fans and subscribing to the channel. Of course, if you haven't, you need to do it, but I'm sure that most of you guys are. So thank you very much. That's all I've got for today. I am going to see you guys in the next video.